Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon's webinar, the AGS Prime Application Introduction and live demo of our AGS Prime Closing the Skills Gap application. My name is Susan Harden, and I am your presenter this afternoon. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to make sure we stay as close to on time as possible so we can have our ending be on time as well. I know everybody's schedules are super busy. Just move that out of the way just a little bit. Okay, so very quickly, just a little bit of housekeeping. This is intended to be about a 30 to 35 minute presentation. This is live two-way communication, so if you're here through your telephone, please don't use your hold button. And I see just about everyone is muted, so thank you very much for that. We should have time for questions at the end of the discussion. If your questions don't get asked or answered today, certainly please feel free to email me your questions or other comments if you'd like to after today. Get a group together to take a more a slower walk through the application specific for your particular project. By all means, that's a big part of my job, so I'd love to hear from you. We do have some materials available to you in the GoToTraining control panel. There should be the slides for today, which are not very lengthy. We do most of this presentation directly in the application as a live demo. But there's a little bit of a handout there, as well as a link to our website, agsprime.com. So I do hope that you'll take a poke at that and take a look at our site and get a sense of, a bit more about the application itself, AGS Prime, and more about the CSG, the Closing the Skills Gap solution itself. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get going. So first of all, of course, I want to say thank you to all of you for taking time out of what I know is a really, really busy schedule. You just got done with your WIPS upload file. We all have a million things to do, so I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to be here with me for a few minutes here this afternoon. On a Friday afternoon, no doubt, we're kind of trying something new and seeing how Fridays might work for people's schedules now that we're all mostly still working from home. So anyway, thank you so much. With a picture being worth 1,000 words, just a few logos from some of our customers. Some of these may look familiar to you. These are a few of our Closing the Skills Gap customers, Scaling Apprenticeship customers. We've been supporting dozens and dozens of other H-1B grantees over these last 3.5, going on 4 years now for Tech Hire, America's Promise, and Strengthening Working Families initiatives. So there are some of those smattered in here as well. Not all of them, of course. We're currently covering about 170 different community colleges through single school projects, multiple school, consortium-based projects in single states, consortium-based projects in multi-states, and kind of everything in between. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of share that with you just a little bit. Let's get going. So the learning goals for today come, I think, directly from the email invitation. No smoke and mirrors here. So what we said we're going to do, this is what we're going to do. So first of all, this is we're going to do a demo of our turnkey WIPS compliant application that's designed specifically for managing H-1B, closing the skills gap data, and reporting, of course. We're going to spend some time looking at how the data gets into the system, the overview of the pre-built compliance system. We'll look at how business rule enforcement behaves on forms and on fields, so you can get a real sense of what that looks like. We'll run a WIPS report. You can see exactly how that behaves in Prime. And we'll also run a performance outcome measures report in the system, so you can see how we provide some additional operational reporting for you as grant managers and project managers. So we're going to spend some time looking at all of those things itself. So without further ado, if that's what you thought you were going to do today, let's go. So I'm going to swizzle over to, you are in the right place. So I'm going to swizzle over to my application. And here I am. I've logged into my AGS Prime demo site. This is a demo site for H-1B Scaling Your Apprentice and Closing the Skills Gap. This is what our customers' sites all look like, with the exception, of course, they don't have the Prime logo here. They have their own logos. They have their own text on this front page. And we just describe at a very high level what we're seeing. This is a 100% web-based application. There's no proprietary hardware or software that is needed in order for you to put data into the system or get data out of the system. So you just need a browser. We prefer Chrome, and you are ready to go. So we see modules across the top. I've logged in as an administrator, so I see the admin module, I see reports, I see our employer management module for that employer outreach, that CRM, if you will, sort of that sales tracking, keeping track of employer prospects, as well as your engaged employers, those employers who have signed up, you know, for the apprenticeship program and have met all of the quality guidelines. And of course, participant management, where your participants, potential and otherwise, you know, your apprentices, all of that data resides. Here on the Home tab, then we also see on our navigation panel over here, the vertical blue bar, some resources that we provide for you on an ongoing basis. We have a workflow guide here that we have created for you, for our users, that we keep up to date based on federal guidelines, using the system as a case management tool while still being compliant, if you will, for the H-1B Pearl data elements and your WIPS reporting. Some different types of workflows that we have documented for you, really just to kind of help with that overall, how do we use the system in a case management business process for these different types of apprentices that we have, that we're working with. And some other additional application updates that we also add some updates, and you also can add your own to the system as grant managers. So when I click on my participant management tool, just sort of really briefly here, we'll come back to this. Prime is a case management environment that supports, on one hand, the case management business process, humans helping humans, right? Moving from point A to point B. But at the same time as we're collecting case management data, demographics and program enrollments and credentials and services and employment and all that great information, at the same time, the other foot's on the other side of the line that says, yes, but I need to have a system that provides compliant data tracking and reporting capabilities for my WIP system, so that I hope that your last reporting cycle wasn't such that you were having to chase down data and get it all cleaned up at the last minute because you were using a group of different spreadsheets, but I know that happens. This system, everyone is doing data entry into the same system. Their data from each organization is segregated, so they only see their organization's data. As an administrator, I see all of the data so that I can report on it. Let me jump over to the reports tab, and we're going to start with reports. That's what people like to, see, prove it to me that the system actually produces a WIPS file. I know that's pretty hot on your minds right now after having just gone through that exercise. So when I click on my reports tab, I can see we have a handful of canned reports, pre-built reports that AGS has provided for you. And we continue to add new reports to the system based on grant management needs, feedback that comes from our customers, other operational types reports that we understand that organizations need over time. So we continue to add new things here. Let's start with the WIPS file. I'm just going to go ahead and run this report from my demo application. So we get a parameter box that pops up. I'm going to select which funding source. I'll select my H-1B grant. I'll select my calendar year, which is 2020. My most recent quarter was Q2. For the purposes of demo, I'm going to do this two ways. I will include the header just so you can see all of the data fields that are there. I'm going to ignore the error file. We give you a final data validation report prior to submission to the Fed, so you can have one last final error check of your data before you send anything off to the feds. We just think that's a nice handy thing to do in case you're importing data or something, you know, hinky happens. We just like to give you that additional level of comfort. I'm not going to include any additional fields. I want to have all staff organizations. Let me go ahead and run this report. Again, this is my demo system, so I have you know, some demo data here. It automatically downloads my report. It's a CSV file, natively read by Excel, of course. And so we see all of the fields. I included the headers so you can see these fields as you would expect for those of you who are becoming more and more intimately familiar with your WIPs, with your Perl data set in your WIPs file, that we have all of the 89 fields of data here for you. When you send this off to the feds, of course, you would not include your header row. You would have lots of errors. So we have all of this yummy data ready for you to save the file, toggle over to the WIP system, and upload your file, and you are done. You are ready to receive your emails from the feds and ideally certify that report. I'll run this one more time, just again for demo purposes, so you can see what this looks like. If in fact, you know, I still have errors, and I purposefully still have errors in my file because I want to be able to show what this error file looks like. So I'm going to say, do I want to ignore the error file? No, let me see if I still have, do I have any errors? I thought I had errors a minute ago when I ran this. Maybe I don't. Yes, there's my error file. Okay, so I do have some errors. So as you can see, we automatically produce an error file for you. The vast majority of these errors would have been caught on data entry, but we've provided this data set so that we can show what an error file looks like coming out of the system, where we provide you the actual error in human readable language, so you know exactly, for example, what's wrong with this particular file for this particular customer, what the error is, what field it errors on, a data element number. It's always helpful when you're thinking, when your head's in Perl data element numbers. The prime form and the prime field, and the staff person actually who did the data entry. So we try to give you lots of good information to be able to track down and correct errors. But again, most of these errors would never have shown up because of the data entry process that catches that up front. But I just wanted to demonstrate so you can see what an error file you know, would look like if you did have any errors. Let me just close that. Now, let me also run a QPR. So what we provide for you is a QPR that is exactly like what you would expect to see coming back from the feds after you certify your WIPs upload file. So we provide this so that you can have this ahead of time, and then to be able to compare that to whatever the feds send back to you. Give you a preview, you know, it's your data. We want to make sure that you have access to it and there are no surprises, basically. So we've basically just mimicked the feds QPR for you and produced this report. And we keep this up to date with all of the business rules changes that are, you know, still coming out, and any format changes that the feds continue to make to any and all of these federal reports. So this should look super familiar to you. It's just my demo site. The other report I want to share with you is the Performance Outcome Measures report. So while this is not a federally required report, we know that all of you are program managers and grant managers and project managers, and you all submitted to the feds in your proposals an appendix for which you said, you know, these are my goals per year, maybe even per organization, and maybe even per special population. So we give you a report that supports and allows you to report on all of that data whenever you want to, and kind of see where you are compared to where you said you were going to be and to where you think you are. So this is your real-time outcome measures report, again, coming out of my demo system. but it should give you, you know, a real honest look as to what this report could look like if you were running this against your data. So we see all of our fields from section A, our fields from section B of this performance outcome measures report on an annual basis. We did break out at least one special population. We provide automatically the individual worksheets per those special pops. I only had one in my demo system, so that's just what is representative here. If you had, you know, veterans and whatever else, all of those would show up automatically if you had data for those special populations. So I wanted to demonstrate that for you. Super handy report. All of our customers use that report as an augment report to their Q&R because it really helps the feds see that picture of, you know, kind of where you are based on what you told them you were going to do. I want to take a step back from here. So we've seen a couple of reports here. I want to show you where you as administrators put those goals into the system so that you can run this kind of a report. I'm going to just do that here over in the admin tab. And after this, we'll go into the participant side and I'll show you how that data gets into the system to begin with. So here on the admin tab, I would train you how to be local administrators, as we call them. And one of those tasks that I train you how to do is how to enter all of your goals, your H-1B goals. So here under the admin tab, we see all of the different tasks that are manageable by local prime administrators for this application. We can add all and manage all of our own staff, our staff organizations, our funding sources, services, programs, resources, and H-1B goals. So in my demo system, I have created some goals for each year of my grant, and say I've broken out year one a little bit more than years 2, 3, and 4. And you can see that for my year one, I have done some breakout between 2 different staff organizations. And for staff organization 1, I also have a special population. So I was able to put all of those iterations as individual goals just by, you know, pulling out the appendix and then creating one of these documents for each of those iterations that I put into my appendix. For every organization, if you wanted to, for every school or employer, depending on how you know your partner mix is, special category, whatever that might be, and for all of your 4 years. And you can see this is just, you're just going to type in the whole numbers that you put into your proposal, and that gives us the baseline for your goals to be able to run this report based on your actual data. So let's talk about actual data. So from a participant data entry perspective, we call them participants. Some of our customers call them customers. Some are more accustomed to using the term apprentice. We use a more generic term here as a commercial product. I'm just calling them participants. So we see our participant list. Because I'm an administrator, I see all of the data. Each of your organizations would log in and they would only see data for their organization. So we have what's called organization level security, except if I'm an administrator, and then I see all of the data by default. So let's do a search of one of my favorite test customers, John Doe. I just do a quick search by last name and I can see I have other customers with those characters in it. And what I'm seeing here at the view level for my validated participants, where the data has been validated, they're not necessarily enrolled in any program yet, but they might be. We see John Doe's name, we see his date of birth, we see a student ID. This field can be used as either a student ID or a Rapids ID or some other unique identifier that you might use within your organization. We don't care, whatever you want it to be, and you can see some don't use it at all. It's just, that's perfectly fine. We see the date of intake and we see the assigned staff. When I open up John's case folder. This is really synonymous with having the electronic file folder. I've just gotten up out of my chair, walked over to the file cabinet, opened up the D drawer, and pulled out the manila file folder for Joe, John, and I see some pieces of paper in his file folder that just happen to be electronic. I can see I have some assessments and training records and credentials and measurable skills gains and all sorts of different things. So when I look at these documents, we begin to see the data collection process at its best. We have put together forms, again, collecting data in a case management process that also provides you compliance, plus some ability to sort of color outside the lines a little bit. We know some of this information is not federally required, but having supported these kinds of grants for so many years, we know that there are other types of information that our customers really want to keep track of. So we keep track of this sort of universal demographics. The field help, comes directly from the feds. The field values come directly from the feds, and only those allowable values. We keep all of this up to date explicitly from the Pearl spreadsheet itself. I navigate back to the participants case folder. We move into the program form, and for grins and giggles, I'll open up, or I'll use this existing form. So we see that the person's name is here. We select from our program list. All of our customers have various and sundry different program names. For Closing the Skills Gap, it's very common for programs to be identified with employer names and occupations or occupational skills. It really depends on you. We don't care. This is not a WIPS field, but all of our programs and customers for all of these years want to be able to do their own analysis on program enrollments based on program names, not just that it's the H-1B grant, the Closing the Skills grant. So we give you some flexibility there. Then we get into really the heart of some of these complex and nitty-gritty business rules that you just simply can't expect your frontline staff, especially if you're dealing with employers, having employers memorize all of this data. And I know not all of you might be having employers do data entry. Many of our customers do, some don't. But regardless, frontline staff really can't be memorizing all this stuff when it changes all the time. So we make it simple. We put fields that only are the allowable values, and depending upon what we put into fields, for example, if I put unemployed here on this field, the employment status at program entry, we get a pop-up message that says, if this person is equal to employed, if they're a recipient of incumbent worker training, is H-1B funded, then this field must equal employed. Otherwise, there's not only an error message, but we cannot successfully save the form. So for those of you who just went through your WIPS reporting and had to go back and clean up data, I hope that you can begin to appreciate, some of this, kind of stuff that we put into the system that just, can really make data entry so much more complex or easy. We like to think that we put the business rules right on the fields, between fields and between forms, so that as much as possible, let the computer do the smarts for you and take that technology off your critical path and focus on the apprentices, focus on the program. You have enough to do. So we want to take that heavy lifting off your shoulders. So you can see I've got a bunch of errors on this field. If I just make one or two quick changes, those fields go away. We see some additional information on this program form. We keep track of training records. We give you some additional information to keep track of individual training names, keeping track of all of the credentials. Depending upon the program, a person can be enrolled in as many trainings and receive as many credentials as make sense for your programs. Track it all. We will do the heavy lifting of only reporting that which is required and allowed by your quarterly WIPS report. It's early days. You may not be finding yourself with lots of different trainings and lots of different credentials, but if and when that time comes, we will make sure that it's the first, second, and third, and the first and prioritized in terms of credentials, so that only the highest 3 credentials are submitted off to the feds based on the rank order that we've put here. Everything is related back to the training and back to the program form, program enrollment for your own internal analytics and longitudinal analysis. Over here on my navigation panel, just really quickly, we can keep track of all of our services, our employments, our work experience if our participant is a pre-apprentice. For this handful that might be associated, pardon me, with CSG. Case noting, not a WIPS requirement, but we know that FPOs absolutely want to be able to see case note log reports, which we provide. Participant attachments, all of that is here available for you. Same thing over on the employer side, where we're keeping track of employer CRM, a very sales tracking type of a business process and module here, where we can have employers as, let's say I'm your outside salesperson, and I'm working with employers to keep track of potential employers and employers who are in fact engaged. They've signed the agreement now to be part of your project. Then we're going to be able to keep track of your performance outcome measures report B2 for this engagement date. And we can see employer demographics, the humans, the people that we call on within those employers, your employer contacts, we call them. All of the activities that you're calling on at your employers. And this is really a sales process kind of a tool. And you can characterize all the different types of employer touches, employer activities. This is a simple keyword that is editable by you. Try to keep an eye on time here. And of course, we're going to keep track of employment opportunities. So whenever there's an employment opportunity, we're going to be able to create that apprenticeship opening and that apprenticeship opportunity, create that record here, and be able to tie that to a participant. So you'll always be able to run those reports, and you'll, from the participant side, always be able to see which employer hired that participant, whether it was for work experience or an apprenticeship opportunity. So kind of a quick, as I warned you ahead of time, a high level run through of the application. One last thing I want to show you here is that, oh, and a quick question came in. Yes, the recording will be available to you after the presentation. Absolutely, yes. Last thing I want to show you here in the app, then we're gonna wrap up here, given time. We do have a self-registration module here that's available to you if you want to use it. In the age of COVID, this has become extremely popular, as you can imagine. You don't really see this from the admin menu. That's not really how it's implemented, but I have it here so I can demonstrate it. It allows you to embed this initial registration form, that demographics information, plus document attachments and other kinds of approvals, should you want to have those kinds of documents here for your self-registrants to be able to provide some initial data and some consent information. We have customers who provide, these are just draft samples for EEO kind of a document. We've got a couple of customers who do media releases that are available, that they include in their self-reg process, SSN disclosure kinds of things. All of that is, just really up to you. We just, put it in here for you. You give us the text and we, format it for you. It's no big deal. so that if you have a self-registrant and are utilizing this process, essentially this URL is embedded in a website from your community college partners, if it's made available off an employer's website, if it's available off your project's website, or however you are potentially promoting this project, this program to potential participants, that it can be, this link can be embedded there to initiate that data collection process, so that, let's say my job, my lucky job when I walk in the morning is to review, I'm over here back on participant management, all of the not yet validated participant records. So this is all the stuff, all the data, all the profiles that came in from, let's say last night, I'm just making this up. So I can come in the morning and review all of the participant data that people entered one by one, to review that they actually gave me enough validated data that we can legitimately follow up with them to determine whether or not they're qualified to be in the program. So all I do is I review this, is I look at, yep, it looks like they've given me what I expect to get. I can change this to validated. I save the form. Let's see, who is this? This is Liddy Bettingham. Okay, so I save this form, and now Liddy will show up over here in my validated participants, so that I now have a case folder capability for her, and I can start creating case information. So that's just a sort of a quick look at what self-registration can do for you. Should you choose to use it, you don't need to. It can be pretty cool if it can help you. So really quickly, just kind of a recap of where we are. Our value proposition to you is, we've been doing this for a very, very long time, 20 plus years supporting USDOL projects. We are absolute H-1B subject matter experts. We've been around H-1B grants, have lots of references. The feds know us in supporting H-1B grants. And we have we really understand and stay on top of those business rules, and that's what people really count on us to do. We support a lot of organizations, as I've mentioned. You've hopefully been able to see the system itself is compliant. Oops, lots of validation reporting. You've seen WIPS reports, et cetera, et cetera. And from a functionality perspective, hopefully I've been able to, in this very short period of time, demonstrate at a very high level, reporting, the CRM, self-reg. We didn't take any time to really look at the no-code platform itself. That's kind of not for today, but that is part and parcel with your subscription to AGS Prime. From a support perspective, a really, really big deal for our customers. We provide web-based training for your local administrators. We also help support your end user training to get everybody, jump started and off the ground. We provide unlimited and unmetered administrative technical support for your local administrators who we've just trained. And we provide a monthly H-1B CSG/SA bundled together user group that meets the first Wednesday of every month. At 2 p.m. Central Time. We've been having monthly H-1B user group meetings for the last almost 4 years. So we have quite a community of knowledge that comes together on a monthly basis. With that, I'm going to say thank you. I really appreciate all of your time. Again, this is recorded. It will be made available to you for those of you who want to see it again, to share it. And here's my information. I am working from home, but my office number comes directly to me. Here's my email. Please take a look at our website. And again, thank you all very, very much for your time today. I appreciate it, and I hope to hear from you soon. We would love the opportunity to work with you to support you with your grant. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.